This is going to be a short video on analytics in Canvas. So basically we're going to take a look at how it is that we can obtain both whole course and student level data on what's happening in any of our Canvas classes. So we're going to start with course level analytics. And in course level analytics, we're going to be looking at the entire class as a whole, not individual students. But we can get information about the activity in the course by date, submissions by students in the course, overall course grades, and individual student data before looking more specifically into each individual student. So as we go forward, some of the graphs and photos we're going to have in the presentation are ones I've taken from my own courses. Some of them come from the Canvas guides because they better demonstrate some of how the analytic graphs look. So first of all, how to access course level statistics. So when you're in your course, if you go to the home button and you are on your course, over on the right hand side you'll see a little button called View Course Analytics. If you click on this, you'll be taken to a place where you can access a variety of the course level statistics that we're going to be talking about. And we'll see graphs of those individually on following slides. One thing to note about this is when you get to the analytics page in Canvas, you'll see up in the upper right hand corner of the screen a toggle switch. It has a default of a graph, but you can also switch this to table. So if you prefer to see your analytic data in the defaults, which is the graph, you can leave it as is, or you can move that to the right and see everything as a table instead. So in course level analytics, the first graph you will see is one that's called activity by date. And in activity by date, what you'll see on the x-axis is the date of the course, and on the y-axis you will see either page views or participations. Page views are in the light blue, participations are in the dark blue. So basically in this whole class I can see, in this case, this up and down view of pages and participations, and then it kind of tails off. So I can get a real good indication of how students are accessing this and when. You can see this was actually a Canvas orientation course for students, so early on in the term, as you'd expect, they were accessing this more often, and then later on as they became more familiar with the system, the usage is going down. But I can get that information from this particular course level statistic. If I take my mouse and I hover over a particular bar, I can get a little bit more information about the participations and the page views on that day. So you can see here on September 8th, I had 8 participations in this particular shell and just over 3,000 page views. So it doesn't tell me what those participations were, it doesn't tell me what the page views were or the individual students who participated or viewed pages, but it shows me for the entire class what was happening across that course. Submissions is the next graph in the course level statistics, and you can see on this one we have 3 different color codes. One is on time, one's late, and one is missing. So you will see the assignments now on the x-axis, and then percentages on the y-axis showing what percent of students had on time, late, or missing work. So in this assignment, for example, everything was turned in on time. However, on the one next to it, most of it was turned in on time, the green, but there is some yellow and some red indicating there was late and missing submissions. As with the course level statistic on activity in the course as a whole, if I were to hover over these bars, you can get a little bit more information on this particular assignment. So this one happened to be a course goal and learning objective, had the due date, and it shows that there was 7.1% missing, 7.1% late, and 85.7% of the assignments turned on time. So this gives me a good indication for each individual assignment how it is that the course is participating in the assignment submissions. The next one is grades. And grades has a lot of information about individual assignments. You can see up in the legend here, there's a vertical bar for the total range. So you can see the total range of scores on an assignment by this vertical bar. You see in the darker blue, kind of this bar area where the 25th to 75th percentile is, and you can see that the horizontal bar here is the median. So we get a good indication of what the high and the low scores were and how they spread out. We'll get an idea of the percentile range between the 25th and the 75th, and we can see what that median score is for each of those assignments. And as before, if we hover over one of those assignments, you'll see some information on those. This one happened to be an assignment titled Patriotism or Treason. They had a high score, the median, the low, and the possible score. So some good data on that one. In this case, we have this bar that is kind of a shaded kind of gray. And as I indicated here, those are muted assignments. So those have been put in the grade book, but they have not yet been submitted or unmuted so that students can see those scores. If you scroll down to the bottom of the course analytics page, you'll see some information that's on each individual student. Here we have students, we have page views, participation, submissions, how many were submitted on time, late, and missing, and then their current score. So a good way to overall see how individual students are participating in one global picture. You will notice that there's some down arrows next to page views, participations, and current score. So if you'd like to see it organized, not alphabetically by the student name, but either high or low by the page views, participations, or current scores, you can use this little arrow to reorganize that information. If you want to get student level analytics and really see what an individual student is accessing, you're going to start by going to the People's tab. And then in the People's tab, as an instructor, you will have an overview of student activity in this course. So you'll have the student name, the login, their information in the system, their role, and then some good information, the last activity and the total activity. So in this case, for this particular student, I can go over and see that their last activity was September 26th at 8:14 a.m. and their total activity in the class was just over 2.5 hours. Unless you have administrator access, you won't see this bar or this wheel here. But you will be able to see the last activity and the total activity. So this is a pretty quick way to be able to go in and see for your students, when's the last time they logged into the class, and then what's their total activity within that class. Now, one thing to keep in mind about the total activity is it doesn't mean that they were actively working on the course during that time. They could have logged in and have it log into the class, and then during that time be doing other things. You know, I have quite a range in here between these individual students, with one or a couple spending around 2 hours, one 4.5 hours, and one almost 10 hours. So sometimes you just have to be careful about assuming that whatever time is in there indicates that a student is actually participating in the material that you have in that class. It could be that it's sitting there logged in, the time is running, but they're not actually doing anything in the class. To get more information on how you are participating with those students and how you're interacting with them as the faculty member or the teacher, in the People's tab again, go to the little gear icon in the upper right and click on Student Interaction Report. This is going to give you some information on how you are interacting with students in your class. So it'll look something similar to this. You have the student, you have the last student interaction, so the last time you happen to communicate with the student. If you were using faculty journals to take some notes on interaction with students, you can see when's the last time you made a journal entry on that one. In this case, I haven't for these students. But for each student, you'll see their current score, their final score. You'll see if there's any ungraded assignments, like there is for this particular student. And there's a place where if you see something that you would like to give students either kudos on or communicate with them a particular need, you can go to the message icon here and directly from the screen open a message to that particular student. As in previous screens, you can see that there is a little option arrow here. So if you would like to sort this chart not by the student name, either alphabetically or reverse alphabetically, but you want to do it by current score or final score or last student interaction, you can use those option arrows there to change that. If you want to obtain more information about individual students, you're going to go to the Peoples tab, click on an individual student, and then select Analytics. At that point, you'll be able to get the graphs that are similar to what you've seen for the course, but these are going to be for just the individual student, not for the entire class. So again, we're going to have activity by date. We're going to have a new one, communication between the student and the faculty member. We're going to have information on submissions and the grades for these students. And as before, with any of the bars, you can change it to either a graphical interface or a tabular interface. And if you have the set to the default, which is the graphical interface, if you hover over a bar, you can get more information about that particular student or that particular submission. So here's an example of a student report. You can see that we have the page views and participation. Again, this is the date down here. But now, rather than looking at the entire class, I'm just looking at the individual students, so I can see how it is that they're participating within this class. And again, if I hover over one of those bars, I can get an idea of the date and what that student did as far as participation and page views. Again, I don't know exactly what they participated in or what those pages they viewed were, but I can get that information about this student on those particular days. If there's not a graph a particular day, then you know the student had neither page views nor participation on that date. The student reports on communication shows an overview of communication between a student and the instructor. So in this case, instructor communication portions are in the light blue, and the times the student communicated with the instructor is in the orange. So you can see along the way where it was that that faculty member had a message going to that student or to a group of students that included that student, and then you can see where in the dates that individual student responded or communicated with the teacher or the instructor in that class. This is an example of the student report for submissions. Here we have the legend up here. So we have green being on-time assignments. We have yellow triangles being late assignments, red squares being missing assignments, and open circles being future assignments. So we have the dates. We can see when it was that the student had on-time submissions for various assignments in class. We can see where it is that they had an assignment that was turned in late, and we can see where this individual still has assignments that are missing. And then, of course, these are still the ones that are coming up in the future. So a good way to overall take a look at the submissions of that particular student and whether or not they have any missing or if there's patterns that would indicate that you need to contact that student because either they are chronically turning in late work or you can see that they still, in this case, had a number of missing assignments. Here's an example of student reports for the grades. So again, we have the information up here on how to read the information in this graph. It's very similar to the one for the entire course in that we have a total range, a 25th to 75th percentile, a box. We have indicated what the median score on that assignment is. But now for each individual student, or for the individual student that we're on, we have kind of an indication of whether their score was good, fair, or poor. So you'll have a green dot in a graph indicating where that student scored on that assignment. In this case, it's green, so it's indicating they scored pretty well. If they're scoring kind of in the lower end of that box, you can see they are marked with a fair score, and then if they scored below a certain number, a certain percent on that assignment in relation to how other students scored, they are indicated with a poor score. So this is just a way to overview how that student is interacting as far as the assignments with the rest of the class in comparison, and give you an idea how it is that you might communicate better with that student about their performance. Again, you can hover over an assignment and it will give you information about the score that that individual student received in relation to the high, the median, and the low on that particular assignment. Finally, if you want to get information on exactly what a student is accessing within your course, you can go back to the Peoples tab, you can click on that student's name, and then instead of analytics, you can pick access report. So you're going to get a report from the particular student on how they're accessing this course. So you see the content that individual is interacting with. You can see the time they viewed it, the time they participated, and the time that was last viewed. So in this case, I note that the last time the student entered the course was 5 hours ago. They viewed twice the week 1 discussion question, but they have yet to participate in that. I can see that on the class participant introductions, this page was viewed 23 times. The individual had 11 participations, and the most recent of those was 14 hours ago. So in this case, I can go back and get a good view of what that student is doing in the course, and again, the last time they viewed it. So if they have not viewed any content for quite a while, depending on when assignments are due in your course and how you're using it, that would give you an indication of somebody you might want to get in touch with and make sure that they're still logging in and participating in the course in the way that you intend to. So hopefully this overview has been helpful. However, you can always go to the Canvas guides for a quick review of analytics and some good documentation on how to access those analytic pieces that we've talked about here and what those mean. If you like short videos, you could also go to the Canvas video instructor guide and see some short clips on accessing the analytics as well.